The 12-day war between Israel and Iran ended with a US-brokered ceasefire. But calling a clear winner is tricky. All sides are claiming victory, though each walked away with different outcomes. Hello and welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm Mark Lynn. Who won this 12-day war? Let's connect the dots. Israel achieved significant tactical gains. Its air force struck deep into Iranian territory, targeting nuclear and military infrastructure. Israel officials claimed they removed a dual immediate existential threat and even assassinated a senior Iranian nuclear scientist. Iran, while battered, demonstrated resilience. It launched retaliatory strikes, including one on a major US airbase in Qatar, and maintained regime stability. Symbolically, surviving the onslaught was framed as a form of victory.
Iran emerged proud and steadfast in the face of this criminal aggression. This proves one simple truth more clearly than ever: diplomacy and dialogue are the only path to resolving the unnecessary crisis over Iran's peaceful program.
Massive precision strikes on the three key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime.
The US, under President Trump, positioned itself as the peacemaker. After launching strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, the US quickly pushed for a ceasefire, which both nations accepted. Trump declared it the 12-day war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the Middle East.
On June 21st, a U.S. precision operation effectively fulfilled our narrow objective to degrade Iran's capacity to produce a nuclear weapon. These strikes, in accordance with the inherent right to self-defense, collective self-defense, consistent with the UN Charter, aimed to mitigate the threat posed by Iran to Israel, the region, and to, more broadly, international peace and security.
Israel gained militarily, Iran endured, and the US claimed diplomatic success. But the region remains tense, and the ceasefire, while holding for now, is fragile. Both nations agreed to a US-brokered truce, with President Trump claiming credit for halting the war, just as it threatened to spiral further. While Iran officially declared the war over and thanked Qatar for its role in brokering the ceasefire, there have been minor violations, including an Iranian missile strike and an Israeli air assault on Tehran shortly after the truce began.
They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes, then it's easier to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language to
You have to use
stop
strong language. Every once in a while, you have to use a certain word.
Despite these breaches, both sides have paused major military operations and diplomatic channels are now open. US envoy Steve Witkoff described the ongoing talks with Iran as promising, hinting at hopes for a longer-term peace deal. What could reignite tensions? Both sides have already accused each other of breaking the truce. Israel bombed a radar site near Tehran just hours after the ceasefire began, while Iran allegedly launched missiles at Israeli targets, though it denies this. Israel claims it crippled Iran's nuclear program, but US intelligence suggests the damage was limited. If Iran resumes enrichment, or if Israel believes it's doing so, another strike could follow. The US played a major role in the conflict, bombing Iranian nuclear sites and brokering the ceasefire. Iran's missile strike on a US base in Qatar shows how quickly things could escalate if American assets are targeted again.
But had we not succeeded with that hit ended the war. That hit ended the war. I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki. But that was essentially the same thing. That ended that war. This ended that with the war. If we didn't take that out, they'd be fighting right now.
President Trump publicly rebuked Israel for continuing airstrikes, while Iran's leaders have vowed to retaliate if provoked. One misstep or inflammatory statement could unravel the fragile peace. Iran is mourning the loss of senior commanders and scientists, including Mohammad Reza Sedighi Sabir, reportedly killed in an Israeli strike after the ceasefire. These deaths could fuel calls for revenge. In short, the ceasefire is more of a pause than a peace. One wrong move, military, political, or rhetorical, could light the fuse again. Iran's regime has survived the 12-day war, but it's emerged weakened, isolated, and under pressure, both at home and abroad. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and President Masoud Pezeshkian remain in power. They framed the ceasefire as a heroic resistance victory, but the damage to Iran's military and nuclear infrastructure is undeniable. Israel and the US struck deep into Iran, destroying key nuclear sites and killing senior commanders. Iran's air defenses failed to stop many of these attacks. While state media is pushing a narrative of resilience, protests have erupted in some cities, and analysts say the regime's prestige has taken a hit. Iran is more diplomatically cornered than before. Even allies like Russia and China have been cautious in their support, and the US has reasserted dominance in the region. Iran's leadership has made it clear they intend to revive their nuclear program, and they've been preparing for this moment. According to Iran's atomic chief, Mohammad El-Sami, the regime had preemptively planned for restoration of its nuclear infrastructure, anticipating damage from Israeli and US strikes during the 12-day war. He stated that Iran aims to avoid any interruption in production and service process, suggesting that rebuilding efforts are already underway. Iran has also ended its cooperation with the IAEA.
I don't think this would help anybody, starting with Iran. This would lead to isolation, all sorts of problems, and why not? Perhaps, if not the unraveling, a very, very, very serious erosion in the NPT structure.
However, there are major hurdles. Israeli and US airstrikes reportedly destroyed key enrichment sites, including the heavily fortified Fordo facility. The IAEA has urged Iran to return to diplomatic cooperation, and any overt moves to restart enrichment could trigger new sanctions or even military responses. Prime Minister Netanyahu has vowed to block any future revival of Iran's nuclear ambitions, warning that Israel will act with the same determination and strength if Tehran tries again. So while Iran is determined and technically capable of restarting its program, the path forward is fraught with risk. The next few weeks will likely reveal whether Tehran pushes ahead or opts for diplomacy under pressure. Russia and China have expressed diplomatic support for Iran's right to a peaceful nuclear program, but they stopped short of endorsing any move towards weaponization. In March 2025, at a trilateral meeting in Beijing, senior diplomats from Russia, China, and Iran issued a joint statement emphasizing Iran's right to peaceful nuclear energy under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. They opposed unlawful unilateral sanctions and called for renewed dialogue focused solely on the nuclear issue and lifting sanctions. Moscow condemned Israeli attacks and cautioned that such actions risk pushing the world to the brink of catastrophe, particularly since Russian specialists work at Iran's Besheher nuclear plant. China has urged restraint and diplomacy, signaling that it prefers a negotiated solution over escalation. So while both countries back Iran's civilian nuclear ambitions and oppose Western pressure, they're also wary of regional instability and have not publicly supported any military dimension to Iran's program.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff.
For 3 nations, a new chapter in space takes flight. Godspeed, AX4.
Every nation waits for that moment, the moment that takes your breath away, when history stops being distant and becomes personal. For India, the moment came after 40 years when Group Captain of the Indian Air Force Shubhanshu Shukla created history by becoming the first Indian ever to set foot on the International Space Station. The feat came after the successful docking of Axiom 4 mission, a landmark private space flight launched by Axiom Space in partnership with SpaceX.
The capsule itself, Grace, has been very kind. I was not feeling very great when we, got shot into the vacuum. But since yesterday, I've been told that I've been sleeping a lot, which is a good sign. So I think that's a great sign. I'm getting used to this quite well, enjoying the views, enjoying the entire experience, learning like a baby, learning the new steps, learning how to walk, learning how to control yourself. Everything, learning how to eat, I think. So it's a new environment, new challenge, and I'm really enjoying this experience with my fellow astronauts here.
The Axiom Mission 4, or AX-4, was launched from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida on Wednesday with a brand new SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule riding atop a Falcon 9 rocket. Group Captain Shukla became the first Indian astronaut to travel to the International Space Station in the last 40 years, only after the revered Indian astronaut Rakesh Sharma. Sharma spent 8 days in orbit as part of the then Soviet Union's Salyut 7 space station in 1984. The Axiom 4 mission, led by Peggy Whitson, the most experienced astronaut in American history, who has spent more days in space than any other woman globally. Now, the other two mission specialists are Tibor Kapu from Hungary and Sławosz Uznański Wiśniewski from Poland. The mission marks the return to space for not just India but Poland and Hungary as well. The Indian Air Force officer piloting Axiom 4 mission has sent a powerful message to India from abroad, the Dragon spacecraft, as it orbits the Earth.
नमस्कार मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों, वॉटर राइड 41 साल बाद हम वापस अंतरिक्ष में पहुंच गए हैं और कमाल की राइड थी। इस समय हम 7.5 किलोमीटर प्रति सेकंड की रफ्तार से पृथ्वी के चारों तरफ घूम रहे हैं और मेरे कंधे पे मेरे साथ मेरा तिरंगा है जो मुझे बता रहा है कि नहीं हूँ, मैं आप सबके साथ हूँ। ये मेरी इंटरनेशनल स्पेस स्टेशन तक की जर्नी की शुरुआत नहीं है, ये भारत के ह्यूमन स्पेस प्रोग्राम की शुरुआत है और मैं चाहता हूं कि आप सभी देशवासी इस यात्रा का हिस्सा बने। आपका भी सीना गर्व से चौड़ा होना चाहिए, आप भी उतना ही एक्साइटमेंट दिखाइए। आइए हम सब मिलकर भारत के इस ह्यूमन स्पेस प्रोग्राम की जर्नी की शुरुआत करें। धन्यवाद। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
His words, brimming with emotion and patriotism, marked a historic return for the nation to space after a 41-year gap. Prime Minister Narendra Modi welcomed the successful launch of the Axiom 4 space mission. The Prime Minister said, and I quote, "We welcome the successful launch of the space mission carrying astronauts from India, Hungary, Poland and the US. The Indian astronaut Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla is on the way to become the first Indian to go to the International Space Station. He carries with him the wishes, hopes and aspirations of 1.4 billion Indians. Wishing him and other astronauts all the success." The successful launch of Axiom 4 mission has ignited a wave of pride across India. Union Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh said that India is no longer a follower but an equal partner in all collaboration.
It's a quantum leap, and of course, after 40 years, an Indian astronaut has gone up, but there's a huge difference between the expedition that happened in 1984, where Rakesh Sharma went. The difference then and now is that at that time, our space program was just in infancy. There was not much to offer, and not much was expected of India, nor did we look for too much. But today, India is an equal partner. It is not only collaborating in the scientific experiments, but rather playing a leading role. He has been assigned to perform the various experiments which have been broadly classified into 7 categories.
India is coming of age as a player in space. You look back decades to when space was a province for countries like the United States and the Soviet Union. Now it's much more varied, and we see that India is one of the truly fastest growing countries in space. Our country is too. We congratulate India on all its success.
Shukla's participation in Axiom 4 marks a major symbolic and strategic milestone in the country's human spaceflight ambitions. India's space agency, ISRO, sees this flight as a key stepping stone towards its own maiden crewed mission, planned for 2027 under the Gaganyaan program, meaning skycraft. Former scientist and professor at the Indian Institute of Astrophysics, R.C. Kapoor, said that the mission is an extraordinary opportunity for the country. But the main question here is, what will the astronauts do aboard the International Space Station? The space station orbits Earth about 250 miles above the planet. Once they arrive, the Axiom crew members, they're expected to stay there for about 2 weeks. They will conduct research for dozens of scientific studies on behalf of 31 nations. The studies will cover how cancers behave in low Earth orbit, wireless acoustics, microalgae in space, 3D printed polymers, DNA repair, and other subjects. Experiments will improve our understanding of space and its effects on biology and microgravity. Projects will also investigate how tardigrades, microanimals on Earth that can survive extreme environments, would fare in space. The other experiments aim to identify how muscle loss occurs in space and how it can be treated. And last but not the least, the physical and cognitive impact of using computer screens in microgravity. The AX-4 mission is more than just a flight. It's a turning point in international space participation. It promotes equitable access to low Earth orbit through commercial partnerships. Now India is entering a new era of space exploration. The Gaganyaan mission, a national program that could launch a crewed spacecraft as early as 2027, would make India the 4th country to independently send humans into space after Russia, the United States, and China. The human spaceflight program will further elevate India's growing stature in space exploration, following milestones like the successful Mars orbiter mission and the historic landing of spacecraft on the Moon's southern polar region. The Axiom 4 mission is not just a scientific feat, but a testament to India's rising stature as a global technology powerhouse. It reinforces the nation's capability to lead space innovation, promote sustainability, and contribute meaningfully to global missions. Thanks for watching. That's all we have in this edition of Connecting the Dots. We'll see you in the next episode with more raging issues. Until then, it's goodbye from all of us in the Delhi newsroom. This is Mark Lynn signing off. Take care and stay safe. Namaskar.